The restaurant was buzzing, but not with warmth. It was the kind of place where the lights were too bright, the floors too sticky, and the music too loud to drown out the shouting of customers who thought the world owed them a better omelet. Jasmine Clark carried 2 plates of breakfast to table 7, her apron dusted with flour and the faint scent of coffee clinging to her hair. At 19, she had been working at Benny's Diner for almost 3 years. She had started when she was 16, balancing school, late-night homework, and shifts that left her feet blistered and her arms aching. She wasn't just working for herself. Her little brother, Malik, and her younger sister, Tiana, relied on her. Their father had walked out years ago, and their mother had died in a car accident when Jasmine was just 12. The diner was chaos. A man in a crisp suit waved a hand at her, impatient. "Excuse me, I've been waiting 20 minutes for my coffee." Jasmine smiled, nodding, her voice calm but firm. "Coming right up, sir." She balanced the plates and poured the coffee, glancing toward the back where her manager, Carla, shouted about tables not being cleared fast enough. Carla wasn't cruel, but she had a temper. She had little patience for mistakes, and Jasmine had learned early that a single dropped plate could earn a public scolding. Jasmine slid the plates onto the table, careful to avoid the edge. "Here you go," she said. The man barely looked at her, muttering under his breath. She moved on, refilling drinks, taking orders, always moving, always thinking, always calculating. Every tip counted. Every hour mattered. It wasn't just about money. It was survival. Malik had asthma, and his inhaler needed refills that weren't cheap. Tiana was in middle school, her braces expensive and her art supplies costly. Bills arrived like an unrelenting storm, and the rent was always looming over them like a shadow. Jasmine had learned to stretch every dollar, to make meals last, to keep the lights on and the tiny apartment above Benny's clutter-free enough that the kids could sleep without nightmares about eviction. This Saturday morning, however, something unusual was happening. Jasmine noticed a man sitting in a corner booth she had never seen before. He was young, clean-cut, probably in his early 20s, with a tailored jacket and a watch that gleamed in the sunlight streaming through the diner windows. He watched the room quietly, his eyes scanning, evaluating. When he finally spoke, his voice was sharp but controlled. "I hear someone here might be an heiress." Jasmine froze mid-step. She had heard the rumor before, whispered among co-workers and customers. A distant relative, a hidden fortune, a potential inheritance that no one had been able to claim. For a black teen like her, in a world stacked against her, it seemed impossible. Yet the man was serious. He had a clipboard, papers, and what looked like a badge clipped to his belt. He was some kind of official. "Excuse me?" Jasmine asked, trying to steady her voice as she wiped her hands on her apron. "You heard me. A young heiress in this city. Someone's claiming a fortune. Board confirmation is pending. If you're who they're looking for." His words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and threatening. Jasmine's heart raced. She had never claimed to be anyone's heiress, and she certainly hadn't applied for anything. But years of whispered family secrets and overheard phone calls made her wonder if there was truth in the old stories. Stories her mother had whispered before she died. Stories about a great-grandfather who had built a fortune and vanished, leaving descendants scattered and unnoticed. Jasmine had never expected to be the one considered the heiress. She had bills, homework, and 2 kids depending on her. Fortune and inheritance weren't part of her daily calculations. The man didn't wait for an answer. He approached the booth where Jasmine had been serving pancakes to a family of 4. He held out a small card. "I need confirmation. Board verification. Are you Jasmine Clark?" The diner fell into a hush. Carla, noticing the unusual tension, paused mid-sentence, wiping down a counter. The other patrons looked up from their breakfasts, sensing drama. Jasmine's stomach twisted. She had to think fast. "Yes," she said cautiously, her voice steady. "That's me. I think you have the wrong person." "No mistake," he said, voice firm. He opened a folder, pulled out a document, and slid it across the table. "This board has verified it. The inheritance exists. You are the rightful heir. Congratulations." Jasmine blinked. The words seemed unreal. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the papers. I don't understand. Why me? The man leaned in. You are the last living descendant. The fortune has been held in trust, awaiting confirmation. All legal documents indicate you are the heir. Once confirmed by the board, access will be granted. Jasmine's mind raced. The diner, the flour, the sticky floors, all of it seemed to fade away. Malik and Tiana, the bills, the nights spent worrying about rent. They were all connected to this one moment, though she didn't yet realize how much her life was about to change. Then came Carla's sharp voice, breaking through the haze. Jasmine, who's this man? What's going on? I don't know. Jasmine stammered, feeling heat rise to her cheeks. She looked at the man. Please, can we talk somewhere private? He nodded, standing. Of course. But soon. The board requires immediate confirmation. They will not wait long. Jasmine stepped outside into the cool morning air, clutching the papers. Her heart was pounding. She had worked so hard for everything she had. She had never dreamed of a fortune. Yet here it was, staring her in the face. And suddenly, all the struggles, all the nights spent worrying about food and bills, felt like preparation for this moment. She was strong enough to face it, she thought, though uncertainty gnawed at the edges of her resolve. The man followed her, clipboard in hand. I must verify your identity in person, he said. If you're truly the heir, the board needs to confirm before any assets are released. You must cooperate fully. Jasmine nodded, swallowing hard. Her mind flickered to Malik and Tiana. She had kept them alive, kept them fed, kept them safe. Now, she thought, maybe she could give them more than survival. Maybe they could have dreams, opportunities, freedom from fear. She squared her shoulders and looked the man in the eye. I'll cooperate, she said. For the first time in years, Jasmine felt something she hadn't felt since before her mother died. Hope. Real, unshakable hope. And somewhere deep in her chest, a spark of determination lit up. She had faced hunger. She had faced exhaustion. She had faced life when it seemed to stack against her. She would face this too. Little did she know, the confirmation from the board would be only the beginning. Her stepmother, someone who had always resented her, would find out. And soon, Jasmine would discover that the fortune was not just a blessing, but a target. People in positions of power in the shadows had been waiting for this moment, planning to take it away before she even had a chance to claim it. She turned back toward the diner. Malik was drawing on a napkin, Tiana giggling over spilled syrup. They had no idea what was coming. Jasmine took a deep breath, tucked the papers under her arm, and walked back in. She had to protect them. She had to survive. She had to fight. Because the world she had known, long shifts, broken paychecks, endless worry, was about to collide with the world she had only heard of in whispers. Money, power, influence, and danger. And Jasmine Clark, the black teen who had survived everything the universe had thrown at her so far, was about to be tested like never before. And the test would be brutal. Jasmine had barely caught her breath when the diner door swung open again, letting in a gust of cold morning air. A tall woman with sharp features and a well-tailored coat entered, her heels clicking on the linoleum. Her eyes scanned the room like a predator, resting briefly on Jasmine before moving on. She carried an aura of authority, of someone used to control, of someone who expected obedience. Jasmine Clark? The woman asked, her voice smooth but commanding. Jasmine straightened, heart pounding. Yes, that's me. I'm Veronica Steele. I handle the legal affairs of the board, confirming your inheritance. She held out a folder and a pen. We need to complete the paperwork today. Time is critical. Jasmine swallowed hard. The name felt familiar in some distant way. She had overheard her mother mention a Veronica Steele once, years ago, in hushed tones, warning her to be careful about family claims and hidden money. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Okay, I'll cooperate, she said, keeping her voice steady. Veronica nodded, but her eyes flickered as if she had expected more hesitation. Good. Follow me to a private office. It won't take long. Jasmine followed her through the back hallway of the diner, past the staff kitchen and the storage rooms, into a small office that smelled faintly of old coffee and paper. She closed the door behind her. Veronica laid out the folder on the desk and tapped a pen against it. "You are aware," Veronica began, "that the inheritance is substantial. Assets, real estate, investments, it's a life-changing amount of money. And while the board has verified your claim, there are others who may try to contest it." Jasmine nodded, fighting to keep her pulse under control. "I understand. But why me? Why now?" Veronica's eyes softened briefly, just for a moment, before hardening again. "You are the last living descendant. The fortune was held in trust for decades. Every legal step has been taken to ensure that it goes to you. But as I said, there will be challenges. People who might come out of the woodwork, family members, distant relatives who believe they have a claim." Jasmine's stomach knotted. She had already lost so much. She had survived hunger, poverty, and the loss of her parents. The thought of strangers or even family members trying to take this away, to claim what was rightfully hers, made her fists clench. Veronica leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper. "And that's not the only danger. There are people who have been watching you. Your claim to this inheritance makes you a target." Jasmine froze. "Target? You mean someone might hurt me?" Veronica nodded. "Potentially. There are always opportunists in situations like this. Some are greedy, some are violent. You must be careful. Trust very few people. Keep your location private until we finalize everything." Jasmine swallowed. The diner, her little apartment above it, her quiet neighborhood, they all suddenly felt exposed. She thought of Malik and Tiana, her little siblings who trusted her with everything. She couldn't let them be hurt. She couldn't let anyone take this from her or from them. Over the next hour, Veronica guided her through the paperwork. Every signature, every initial, every line of verification made the inheritance feel more real, more tangible. Jasmine could feel the weight of it in her hands, in the cold paper, in the reality that she might finally have security for her siblings. But with every signature, a new anxiety grew. The thought of danger lurking, of someone coming for her or trying to manipulate her, gnawed at her mind. She realized that the fortune was a double-edged sword. It offered safety and opportunity, but also painted a target on her back. By the time the paperwork was complete, Veronica stood and handed Jasmine a secure envelope. "This contains initial access information. Use it wisely. Do not share it with anyone. Not friends, not co-workers, not even family you do not fully trust." Jasmine nodded, gripping the envelope tightly. She felt as if she were holding the future of her siblings in her hands. Malik and Tiana deserved more than struggle, more than late-night dinners of leftover soup and stale bread. They deserved security, freedom, and a chance to dream. As she stepped out of the office, the diner seemed smaller, more crowded, more chaotic than ever. The customers' complaints, the clatter of dishes, the smell of burnt coffee, it all faded into the background as Jasmine's mind raced with possibilities and threats alike. She had a fortune waiting for her, but she also had enemies she hadn't met yet. Later that evening, Jasmine returned home. Malik was sprawled on the couch, sketching superheroes in a notebook, while Tiana stacked blocks in the corner. Their innocence, their laughter, reminded Jasmine of everything she had been fighting for. She knelt beside them, hugging them both tightly. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise. Things are about to change." But even as she spoke the words, the thought of potential threats lingered. She couldn't let anyone know where they lived. She couldn't trust neighbors or friends completely. She needed a plan, protection, and allies she could rely on. The next morning, Jasmine returned to Benny's diner, apron on, hands busy, smile plastered for the customers. Life had to appear normal, routine, predictable. She couldn't let anyone sense that she was suddenly the heir to millions of dollars. Secrets, she realized, were her best defense. But whispers began to circulate almost immediately. Customers noticed her nervous glances, the way she carefully pocketed cash tips instead of leaving them in plain sight. A coworker, timid and curious, asked if she was expecting something big. Jasmine's smile faltered, but she shook her head. "Nothing. Just a normal day," she said and moved on. By midweek, the first signs of danger appeared. A sleek black car had been parked outside the diner for 2 consecutive mornings, engine idling, driver watching the entrance. Jasmine noticed it from behind the counter, her stomach sinking. The man inside wore sunglasses, even in the dim morning light, and his gaze didn't waver. Her instinct screamed at her. He was waiting, evaluating, studying. And it confirmed what Veronica had warned. The inheritance would attract attention, and some of it would be dangerous. Jasmine stayed vigilant, memorizing faces, scanning mirrors, noting every license plate. She knew she had to protect Malik and Tiana at all costs. Every move she made now carried the weight of responsibility, not just for herself, but for the 2 lives depending on her. That night, as she tucked her siblings into bed, Jasmine whispered a promise. "No matter what happens, I will keep you safe. I will survive. We will survive." She kissed their foreheads and turned off the light, letting darkness fill the room. Alone, she pulled out the envelope Veronica had given her. Inside were account numbers, legal documents, and contact numbers for Veronica herself. Jasmine realized something critical. Money could protect them, but only if she was smart, cautious, and relentless. The world had tested her before. Hunger, loss, exhaustion. She had faced them all and survived. Now, the real test was beginning. Outside, the black car idled in silence, waiting for a moment of vulnerability. Jasmine didn't see it yet, but she would soon, and when she did, she would be ready. Because Jasmine Clark, black teen, waitress, protector of her siblings, was about to learn that wealth brought more than freedom. It brought danger, deception, and a fight she had never imagined. And she was not about to lose. Not to anyone. The storm had arrived, and Jasmine had just stepped into its center. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at the diner earlier than usual, heart pounding in a rhythm that matched the pounding of the coffee machine behind the counter. The black car was gone, but she didn't feel relief. If anything, she felt the tension tighten like a cord around her chest. She knew it wasn't just coincidence. The car, the man inside, the way he had watched her. Someone knew. Someone was tracking her movements, waiting for the perfect moment. She pushed the thought aside as the first customers trickled in. The diner had a predictable rhythm. Orders shouted, plates clattering, coffee cups refilled, but Jasmine moved through it all with a distracted mind, her eyes scanning the windows and mirrors for any sign of danger. Every smile she offered was calculated. Every greeting sounded like it belonged to the mask she had learned to wear. By mid-morning, a new complication appeared. A man in a tailored gray suit entered the diner, tall, sharp-featured, with an air of authority that made everyone pause for a moment. He moved to the counter, scanning the room until his gaze locked on Jasmine. Her stomach dropped. "Jasmine Clark?" he asked, voice smooth but commanding. "Yes," she replied, careful to keep her tone steady. "My name is Mr. Holloway. I'm with the security firm contracted to protect the interests of the board, confirming your inheritance. You're in danger. There have been attempts to follow you, and surveillance suggests there may be more." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. "Follow me?" "But I thought Veronica Steele said." Mr. Holloway held up a hand. "Veronica handles legal matters. My job is protection. You need to take this seriously. Someone wants access to your fortune, and they won't hesitate to hurt anyone in their way." The words chilled her. She thought of Malik and Tiana. Her siblings were innocent, vulnerable, completely dependent on her. The idea that someone might try to harm them, or even herself, because of a fortune she hadn't even fully seen yet, made her stomach churn. Holloway continued, "Starting today, you'll need to follow strict protocols. Don't go out alone. Change your routines. Avoid public exposure. We'll provide safe transportation, secure communications, and 24-hour monitoring until the inheritance is fully transferred." Jasmine nodded, realizing how fragile her life had become. She had survived hunger, the loss of her parents, and years of hardship, but now wealth brought a danger she had never anticipated. The day passed slowly, each customer a reminder of the life she was leaving behind. She worked through the lunch rush, carefully placing orders, refilling coffee cups, and maintaining the smile that had become her armor. But every glance over her shoulder, Every reflective window reminded her that danger was never far away. By evening, the tension became unbearable. She locked the diner doors early, excusing herself to the night shift cleaner. She needed to check on Malik and Tiana, ensure they were safe before anything escalated further. The apartment above the diner felt like a sanctuary, but the thought of someone following her even there sent a wave of panic through her chest. When she entered the apartment, her siblings were asleep, curled in blankets, unaware of the peril surrounding them. Jasmine knelt beside them, brushing a strand of hair from Tiana's forehead. "You're safe," she whispered, almost to convince herself. "I won't let anything happen to you." Even as she spoke, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number flashed across the screen. "We know who you are. Don't try anything, or they'll pay." Her heart skipped a beat. The threat was clear. Someone knew. Someone was already testing her resolve. Jasmine stuffed the phone into her pocket, forcing herself to breathe steadily. Panic wouldn't help. Fear wouldn't help. Only careful planning, vigilance, and strategy would keep her family safe. The next day, Holloway returned with equipment: a discreet body camera, a signal jammer, and a small GPS device that could be attached to her backpack. "Install these," he instructed. "They're for your protection. Keep them on at all times until you reach the final transfer of assets." Jasmine complied, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. The gear was small, almost invisible, but the knowledge it carried, that someone might try to intercept her, to steal what was hers, made her pulse quicken. That night, she sat in her small apartment, reviewing every detail Veronica had provided, every instruction from Holloway, every potential threat she could imagine. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was power, influence, and freedom, but it also attracted predators. And predators would stop at nothing. She thought of the diner, the place that had been her refuge, her routine, her world. It felt distant now, like a memory from another life. She could never go back to the way things were, not when every shadow, every stranger, every car passing by could be a threat. 3 days later, Jasmine received an unexpected visitor. It was Malik's school principal, a kind but stern woman, who had come to check on her after noticing Jasmine's exhaustion and distraction at the parent-teacher meeting earlier that week. "Jasmine," she said gently, "I know things have been difficult, but I want to help however I can. If you need a place for Malik and Tiana, or someone to watch them while you work, I can arrange it." Jasmine hesitated. She wanted help, but she also wanted to protect her family from anyone who might use their vulnerability against them. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you. I'll consider it. I need to make sure they're safe." The principal smiled knowingly. "I understand. You're a brave young woman. Keep that courage. You're stronger than you realize." After she left, Jasmine looked out the window, the city lights twinkling below, the streets filled with life that felt unaware of the storm gathering above. She realized she was on her own in this fight. Allies were rare, trust was scarce, and danger was everywhere. But she also understood something vital. She had survived worse before. Hunger, loss, fear. She had faced all of them and come out stronger. Her resolve hardened. She would not allow threats, intimidation, or greed to control her life. She would protect Malik and Tiana. She would claim the inheritance that was rightfully hers. And she would do it on her own terms, with her intelligence, courage, and unyielding spirit. As the night deepened, Jasmine set up a small plan on paper, listing potential threats, allies, escape routes, and contingencies. Every thought was calculated. Every decision mattered. She was no longer just a waitress in a diner. She was a strategist, a protector, and a survivor. The storm outside had begun, dark clouds rolling over the city like a curtain. Jasmine felt it was a symbol, a warning, and a promise. Danger was coming, but so was opportunity, and she was ready for both. For Jasmine Clark, the battle had only just begun, but she would not falter. Not now, not ever. The following morning, Jasmine awoke before dawn. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant siren of the city streets below. She had barely slept, her mind racing with strategies, escape routes, and contingencies. Holloway's instructions repeated in her head: "Do not go out alone. Avoid patterns. Be aware of everything. She rose silently, careful not to wake Malik or Tiana, and checked the small cameras Holloway had installed. Everything seemed normal, or at least as normal as it could be when danger was lurking just outside your window. Jasmine dressed in neutral colors, practical shoes, and her hair tied back. She carried a backpack with essentials, phone, emergency cash, a small first aid kit, and the GPS tracking device Holloway insisted she keep activated. The world had changed. The diner, her family, even the streets she had walked countless times now felt like a minefield. One wrong step, one careless glance, and everything could unravel. By mid-morning, she made her way to the diner to check on the day's operations, hoping to maintain some sense of normalcy. But as soon as she entered, she sensed something was off. The air seemed heavier, the hum of conversation a little too quiet. She noticed a man sitting in the corner booth, his dark sunglasses unusual for an indoor space, his posture rigid, like a predator watching prey. Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. She approached cautiously, trying to keep her composure, pretending he was just another customer. "Good morning, sir. Coffee?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her chest. The man didn't answer. He simply nodded slightly, eyes hidden behind the dark lenses. Jasmine's instincts screamed danger. She memorized his features, the sharp jawline, broad shoulders, the faint scar along his cheek, and made a mental note to alert Holloway immediately. She moved quickly but discreetly, serving other tables while keeping one eye on him. As the lunch rush began, the man remained silent, observing her every movement. She realized he wasn't there for the food, the ambience, or the service. He was there for her. Each customer who entered felt like a distraction, each ringing order like a countdown. Jasmine's mind raced. Who sent him? Was it a test, a warning, or the real threat? After the lunch rush, she returned to the apartment, her pulse still racing. Malik and Tiana were safe, thankfully asleep, but Jasmine knew the quiet wouldn't last. She picked up her phone and called Holloway. "Report," he said immediately. "There's a man in the diner. He's been watching me all morning. Dark glasses, sharp features, broad shoulders. I think he's here to intimidate me," Jasmine said, her voice tight but controlled. "Stay calm," Holloway instructed. "Do not confront him. Keep him in sight, but do not engage. I'm sending a team. They'll move covertly, make contact, and report back. Keep your routine normal, but avoid leaving the building alone. Understand?" "Yes," Jasmine said, trying to steady her breathing. Within minutes, she heard a faint series of knocks at the back door. Her heart jumped. She peeked through the peephole to see two men in plain clothes, briefcases in hand. Holloway's team. Relief washed over her, but she kept her expression neutral. They entered quietly, taking positions that covered all exits. Jasmine realized this was just the beginning. The danger was no longer theoretical. It had arrived. Holloway's team coordinated silently, observing the diner from the shadows. Jasmine stayed behind the counter, serving coffee and food while her mind analyzed every movement. The man in the sunglasses had noticed the new presence. He scanned the room and then left abruptly, exiting the diner in a rush. Jasmine exhaled. The immediate threat was gone, but she knew it wasn't the end. Later that evening, Jasmine returned to the apartment, exhausted but determined. She checked the GPS, ensuring it was still active, and then reviewed the security footage from the diner. The man in sunglasses was captured exiting the building, then disappearing into the city streets. Holloway's team ran facial recognition and traced him to a private security firm tied to one of the other claimants to her inheritance. Someone wanted her intimidated, maybe even harmed, to back out of her claim. Jasmine's mind raced. Every step of her life had been a struggle. Poverty, loss, hunger. But now her survival depended not just on wit and endurance, but on strategy, courage, and foresight. She couldn't make mistakes. Malik and Tiana's safety depended on it. 3 days later, a new complication arose. Veronica Steele called, insisting on a private meeting at her law office. Jasmine knew it could be a trap, or it could be a necessary step in securing her inheritance. She arranged for Holloway's team to be discreetly nearby and entered the office cautiously. Veronica greeted her warmly, but Jasmine's instincts told her the warmth was a veneer. "Congratulations, Jasmine," Veronica said, handing her a folder. "The board has confirmed your claim as the rightful heir. Everything is in order. But there are parties who may contest it. They're monitoring every move, and some are willing to take extreme measures to delay or discredit you." Jasmine took the folder, absorbing the weight of the confirmation. Relief mingled with apprehension. She had won, legally, but the fight was far from over. The inheritance was hers, but only if she could survive the storm of threats, intimidation, and betrayal surrounding it. As she left the office, she noticed a shadow across the street. A man taking pictures, keeping his distance, but following her nonetheless. Her stomach sank. Holloway had predicted this. The threat wasn't just real, it was persistent. Back at the apartment, Jasmine briefed Malik and Tiana, keeping details minimal. "We have to be careful," she said. "Some people might try to trick us. But we're smart. We'll watch each other's backs. No one is touching our family. No one is touching what belongs to us." Night fell, and the city lights cast long shadows across the apartment walls. Jasmine sat by the window, watching for movement, thinking through every potential scenario. Every sound, every flicker of light outside, every passerby could be a clue or a threat. Her life had changed forever. She was no longer just a waitress at a local diner. She was a target, a strategist, and a guardian for the people she loved most. The inheritance was a prize, yes, but survival was the true test. She tightened her fists around the edge of the windowsill. "I've survived worse. I could survive this too." Tomorrow, she decided, she would set a trap. Not for the legal system, not for the board, but for the people who had threatened her, who had tried to frighten her family into submission. She would show them that Jasmine Clark wasn't just a waitress. She was a force they couldn't ignore, a storm they couldn't contain. And in the darkness of the night, with the city humming quietly below, Jasmine felt something she hadn't felt in years: confidence. She had faced poverty, hunger, and loss, and now she faced wealth, danger, and deceit. And she would not falter, because this time, she wasn't just fighting to survive. She was fighting to win. The morning sun cast long shadows across the city streets as Jasmine prepared for the day that could change everything. She had spent countless hours strategizing with Holloway and his team, going over every possible scenario, mapping escape routes, and memorizing every detail of the people who had threatened her. Today, she wasn't just going to survive. She was going to confront them, expose them, and reclaim what was rightfully hers. She dressed simply but confidently, black slacks, a fitted white blouse, and comfortable shoes that allowed for quick movement. Her hair was tied back neatly, and her face bore no trace of fear, only determination. Malik and Tiana were still asleep, and she left them with a note: "Be safe. Trust me, everything will be fine." Her hands trembled slightly as she tucked the note onto the kitchen counter. Every step she took now carried weight. Every movement could tip the scales. Outside, Holloway's team had already established positions. Cameras were discreetly installed around the law office, surveillance vans parked 2 blocks away, and every exit monitored. Jasmine knew the people she was up against: private security, hired investigators, and even some corrupt officials. But she also knew she had the law, evidence, and the element of surprise on her side. She arrived at Veronica Steele's office exactly at 10 a.m., her pulse steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Veronica greeted her warmly, but Jasmine's eyes remained sharp, scanning every movement, every shadow. "Congratulations again, Jasmine," Veronica said, her tone sweet, measured. "The board meeting is today. They will formally confirm your status as the rightful heir. It will be public. But I must warn you, there are people, old allies, distant relatives, and opportunists who may attempt to interfere. Your safety is paramount." Jasmine nodded, pocketing the reassurance without letting it show any effect. "I'm ready," she told herself. The boardroom was filled with the usual dignitaries, lawyers, and assistants. Cameras recorded everything. As Jasmine walked in, she noticed subtle glances, whispers that didn't quite reach her ears, and the way some of the older members stiffened at her presence. She could feel the tension, the anticipation. The chairman called the meeting to order. Today, we are here to confirm Jasmine Clark as the legal heir to the Clark family estate. He began. All documentation has been verified. All claims have been examined. The board is unanimous. Jasmine exhaled quietly. Victory was in sight, but the danger wasn't over. From the back of the room, she caught movement. A man in a dark suit slipping a small envelope onto the door. She recognized him from the surveillance photos. One of the hired goons, sent to intimidate her or bribe her. Before he could escape, she signaled subtly to Holloway's team. Within seconds, he was intercepted quietly at the exit, the envelope confiscated, and he was escorted outside. Jasmine's heart pounded, but she remained composed. Every threat she had anticipated, every risk she had calculated, had been neutralized. The meeting proceeded. Jasmine presented her case calmly, answering questions, providing documentation, and showing the board that not only was she the rightful heir, but she had endured threats, intimidation, and attempts at fraud orchestrated by those who sought to cheat her. Her voice was steady, her demeanor composed, but the fire in her eyes burned brighter than anyone in the room had anticipated. When the vote was cast, it was unanimous. Jasmine Clark was officially recognized as the legal heir. The room erupted in polite applause, but Jasmine barely registered it. Her focus was elsewhere, on the remaining threats outside, on ensuring that every hired hand who had tried to manipulate or harm her would face consequences. Later, as she exited the building, she saw them, two men posing as security, attempting to follow her. Holloway's team moved silently, intercepting them before they could reach her. One of them tried to resist, but the other agents quickly subdued him. In the span of minutes, what could have been a deadly ambush was neutralized. Jasmine exhaled, finally allowing herself a small smile. She had survived the intimidation, exposed the conspirators, and claimed what was rightfully hers. But more importantly, she had protected her family. Malik and Tiana were safe. Her community, who had believed in her, would see justice served. That evening, she returned home. The apartment, once a place of fear and uncertainty, now felt like a sanctuary. Malik and Tiana ran into her arms, and for the first time in months, Jasmine allowed herself to relax. They laughed, hugged, and shared stories of the day. The weight of survival, strategy, and vigilance lifted slightly, replaced with a cautious but real sense of security. Jasmine sat with her family at the dinner table, the golden light of the setting sun streaming through the windows. She realized that the inheritance, while important, was only a part of her victory. The true triumph was reclaiming her life, her dignity, and her peace of mind. Days later, she held a press conference, carefully orchestrated with Holloway's guidance. Cameras flashed, reporters asked questions, and social media buzzed with headlines. Black Waitress becomes millionaire heiress after outsmarting family and security threats. Jasmine answered questions calmly, without revealing the threats, but her story of perseverance, courage, and strategy inspired countless viewers. Behind the scenes, Holloway ensured that the remaining threats were neutralized, legal protections were in place, and her safety measures continued. Jasmine was no longer a target. She was a victor, a strategist, and a survivor. As she looked out over the city from her new office, she reflected on the journey. Every struggle, every sleepless night, every moment of fear had led to this triumph. She had been mocked, underestimated, and threatened, but she had endured. She had protected her family, claimed her inheritance, and ensured that justice prevailed. Jasmine Clark, once a waitress, once a girl living paycheck to paycheck, had become more than anyone had expected. She had become a symbol of resilience, courage, and determination. The world had tried to intimidate her, to silence her, to make her doubt herself, but she had overcome every obstacle. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Jasmine knew this was only the beginning. She had secured her inheritance, yes, but more importantly, she had secured her family, her life, and her legacy. The road ahead might still hold challenges, but she was ready. Every trial she had faced had prepared her for this moment. And nothing, not threats, intimidation, or greed, could ever take that away from her. She smiled, finally, truly, knowing she had earned every bit of her triumph and would protect it with everything she had.